Hello, hello, and welcome back to another episode of Green Disruptors Scaling the Future. I'm your host, Megan Kerr, and today I am thrilled to have Carolina Ortega on with me. Carolina is the VP of Sustainability and Communications at Milestone Environmental Services. They're an industry leader in environmental infrastructure, from carbon negative slurry reinjection to cutting edge carbon sequestration and industrial waste solutions. We dive into how Milestone turns oilfield waste into a carbon negative asset, the real costs and benefits for producers, and the power of transparent community engagement. Let's get started. Hello, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Green Disruptors Scaling the Future. Today I have Carolina Ortega on with me, and she's the VP of Sustainability and Communications with Milestone Environmental Services. So hi, Carolina.
Hello, how are you? Thank you for having me today.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you on. Pleasure to meet you. Can we start by having you tell us just a little bit about the company at large and then kind of how you got into it?
Yes, absolutely. Milestone Environmental Services is an environmental infrastructure services company. Essentially, we have three business units. We have the energy waste management, which is really the bigger part of the business, the holding company, so to speak. And from there, we have two other business units, Milestone Carbon and Milestone Industrial. What Milestone Carbon does, it's developing a carbon storage and sequestration business. It is in development, and we have several leases and permits in and all of it, but it's not operating yet. And then we have Milestone Industrial, which is an industrial waste management company. And essentially, they are the most recently formed part of the business, also in development. And we will be providing, and we already do in some cases, provide waste management services for industrial waste, companies that produce industrial waste.
Right.
So Milestone has been around for a little bit over 10 years, mostly in Texas, a little bit in New Mexico as well. And what the main part of the business does is it takes the waste from, think of it as all the oil fields in Texas.
Yeah.
We take the waste and separate the heavy solids, and then all that slurry that is very heavy in hydrocarbons is reinjected in deep wells. So essentially, all of the hydrocarbons in that waste get sequestered, and it's not left to emit greenhouse gas emissions. So in that way, we are a carbon negative company because we store more carbon than we produce in our operations.
Nice. So just so I understand, so if you didn't re-inject it into those wells, it sitting there would release sewage.
Yeah. Essentially, the standard practice that a lot of oil and gas producers do, there's two options. One, they leave them in reserve pits. It's like, think of it as really gross swimming pools.
Yeah, a swimming pool you would never want to swim in.
Yes, you would never want to swim there with all that waste. And it's just left there to turn into greenhouse gas emissions.
And taking up a lot of space that could be used for something
Yes.
better.
There are some regulations for the larger type of pits, but the smaller ones, essentially, producers can just kind of dig a hole and put it there. And, and then it seeps, all the contamination seeps through into the water and stuff. It's really not good environmental practices at all. The other option, which is just as bad, we call it land farming. And essentially it's to spread the waste very thinly on land out there, which is the same. It's just as bad. So Milestone really came in the picture to have significantly higher environmental standards for how this waste is managed. The largest oil and gas producers in Texas are our customers. So when I mention these practices, doesn't mean that everybody does them, but a lot of people, a lot of companies and producers do. And so, that's what we do every day. Think of it as, if you think of all the value chain of producing oil and gas, the part where waste comes in towards the end of the production life cycle, we clean that up. We make it so that it's environmentally responsible and safer and just better for communities, for the land, for landowners and the environment.
Is it more expensive for these oil and gas companies to do it that way?
Not really. We're almost cost neutral.
Wow.
It's about cost, it's about the same. And so unless you had a lot of wells together and you had a reserve pit nearby, maybe that would make it cheaper. But otherwise, for the most part, it's cost neutral, which is absolutely great.
Yeah. So are you finding that these companies are pretty willing to adopt the better solution?
For the most part, yes. Not all of them, and not always.
Mm-hmm.
It depends. I have to say that unfortunately, sometimes it's a matter of convenience. If we're
Yeah.
close by, they'll bring us their waste. And if not, they'll find another way to do it. And many producers resist stronger regulation that would make it that our practices are required. Right. So I don't know, that always makes me question, well, why is that resistance? Where is it coming from?
Yeah,
And
that is
that
interesting.
means that they still want the ability to manage their waste in other ways. So that is something that raises many flags in my mind.
I mean, I wonder how much of that is culture and like, are these businesses that are like multi-generational businesses?
Some of them are small oil and gas companies, but I don't know. Let's not confuse culture with irresponsible environmental
Well,
practices.
yes.
Done it before doesn't mean that, just because you've thrown trash out the window in the 1960s doesn't mean
Gosh.
that it's our culture
Yeah.
to continue to throw trash out the window in our cars,
I mean,
right?
I agree. Like, we need to like wake up and be more
Exactly.
responsible with, especially
Yes.
these companies have such a huge impact. So it's like,
Yes.
all of us doing what we can to, use our solar panels and our reusable bags. It's like they're the ones making such a huge impact.
Exactly. And also, I think a lot of the smaller producers claim that it's very expensive and it would bankrupt them to use better practices. I also would push back on those arguments and say you are mitigating risk today. So you may
Yes.
not, even though it's not significantly more expensive, if at all, to bring us their waste. In the long term, you are preserving the value of your land. You are preserving or mitigating the risk of further contamination to water sources and all of that. So I really push back whenever I hear producers say, this is too expensive. This is going to bankrupt the oil and gas industry in Texas. No, that's not true. That's just not true.
I mean, that's a challenge. So what are you doing as far as like marketing goes to educate and, nudge these people in that direction?
Yeah, I've been at Milestone for a little over 3 years now.
Hmm.
And a lot of kind of what my job has been is to tell the sustainability story of what we do and why our practices are better for the environment. And we've done a lot. And some of the work was done even before I came here. But a lot of what we've done is help just stakeholders, but also our customers understand the carbon benefit of bringing their waste to us. Like, why is it better? And how, you see some of the larger oil and gas companies have like very robust carbon accounting. And in some cases, they no longer call them goals, but aspirations for carbon reductions. And so essentially what we've done is explain how bringing their waste to us helps them lower their scope 3 emissions and also their scope 1, because if they manage their waste on site, it becomes a scope 1 emission for them. If they
Yeah.
bring it to us, it moves right from one part of their value chain to a different part, and it becomes a scope 3 emission. And you may have heard how a lot of, in all industries, but mostly in oil and gas, they say that accounting for scope 3 emissions is really impossible. And
Mm.
we're kind of saying, no, it isn't. There's companies like ours, suppliers like us that tell you exactly, we tell them exactly what their carbon savings are of bringing their waste to us. So we can tell a company how much carbon we sequestered per waste type, because there's different types of waste that we receive. So we know how much we received from each customer, and we know the barrels that were taken in and how much carbon was in each of that, those truckloads, and how much was sequestered from that waste. And therefore, they're able to account for the emissions in that waste, and now it's being sequestered, so it's no longer an emission, right?
Yeah.
We give them all that information so that they can use it. And that just developing that methodology and the rigor behind it. We have our financial auditors audit all that information as well. So we've made it so the methodology is robust, it's transparent. Yeah. You can find all of it online on our website and on our sustainability reports. And, we're trying to be as transparent as we can with this methodology, with the hopes that there's trust in what we're doing, and that just stakeholders in general know that the information on Scope 3 emissions in this part of the value chain is available from companies like ours.
Yeah. So this whole education piece and showing them the data, does this happen like as part of the sales process, or do you have a lot out there that's educating them before you come in contact with them?
Both. We have an incredible sales team that does a great job in, explaining all of this to our customers. Some of them, to be honest, don't really know what to do with all this data. They still don't have robust carbon accounting to be able to use it. And in other cases, some of the larger oil and gas producers love the data. They understand the value of it and the rigor behind it. But again, they are really, I think, neck deep in understanding all of their Scope 3 emissions. And so ours is just a small piece of, think some of the majors, right? The information that we give them on their Scope 3 on the waste from Texas is pretty small compared to everything else they have.
Yeah.
So they can't always use it. Sometimes they can. It just depends. But we're trying to do that education and that marketing from all fronts as much as we can.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure challenging. So I guess in terms of, you were saying this is a newer division, right?
No, this is our main business.
That's the main one. Okay.
The main business. The other two is carbon storage and sequestration and industrial waste management. Carbon has been around for a little over 3 years as well. I think 4 actually. And industrial is our newest business unit.
Yeah. So how is it going you've been around 10 years-ish, so it's not like you're just developing these go-to-market strategies, but where are you at in terms of scaling? And obviously I think that education piece and that resistance probably one of the biggest challenges, but how would you describe that?
Well, so there's some really interesting and exciting developments for us. First of all, the way that Milestone started 10 years ago was really just waste management. So it was considered more of oilfield services, sorry. Now we really are an environmental infrastructure services company where we provide carbon management to a lot of different industries. We manage their waste. We do a lot of slurry injection. So we've become the largest energy waste management company in the US. And now as we expand into carbon and industrial, it really is more of an environmental infrastructure company. And we want to keep growing. We've done a lot of work to set up sustainable foundations for that growth.
As far as like business models and
business models, management systems, risk management, that kind of stuff that allows us to grow and maintain that sustainable performance that we have today. The responsible environmental stewardship, all of those things. we have set it up internally so that as we grow, these foundations continue to hold up the business, right? And continue to help us through that robust performance. Obviously, there's also all of the financial stuff that we do and, that side of the business. But in terms of sustainability, we're making sure that as we grow, the sustainable practices continue.
And the quality is not compromised at all. And
Absolutely.
yeah.
Well, and in oil and gas and in this type of slurry reinjection, safety is of the utmost priority to us, and ensuring that the land and the communities around us are always safe. So the way that we do our wells is to ensure that water isn't contaminated, that, we follow the highest standards of safety to make sure that our stakeholders and host communities, our landlords, everybody continues to trust the Milestone name.
Yeah. So that's interesting. I was thinking a couple minutes ago when you were talking about outreach to these companies and some of that resistance. I would imagine that just the PR effect of showing the community that you're trying to be more environmentally responsible, I imagine that would have payoffs of its own.
Yeah, I hope so. I hope it does. We've also done something really interesting that I don't see any other company like us doing. In our last sustainability report, we set up a stakeholder engagement process. So essentially, it's a public commitment to engage with communities following a robust process where we seek out mutually beneficial solutions, where we really try to seek out opinions and what is important to communities and try to work through that to find not just the mutually beneficial solutions, but to also integrate the learnings into our business decision making. And by putting it out there on our sustainability report, it kind of says this is what we're committing to. So a community would be able to say, okay, well, we're interested in doing business with you and hosting your business here. Let's talk about these issues that are important to us.
Yeah.
And, let's follow your process and let's see where we get to, right? What commitments we can set up to make sure that we feel as a community that we're going to be safe. And we also help you have a successful business that will help the economic development in the community, but also maintain the highest levels of safety. So that's an exciting part. I think I don't see any other company doing this type of stakeholder engagement, public commitments as we've been.
I think that's really cool because as any broader sustainability practice does seem to incorporate circular thinking and realizing how connected everything is. So if you can connect to the communities and communicate and come up with those mutually beneficial conclusions, that just seems like best practice for any organization.
Yes, absolutely. Look, I've been doing sustainability. I'm a sustainability practitioner. I've been doing it for 25 years. And I can tell you that if a community doesn't want you there, you won't be able to do business.
You're gone.
But I also know that there are many ways to work with your hosts, like the communities, to find points of mutual agreement, mutual respect, mutual trust. And it all starts with transparency and with honesty and with, I think, with sitting down at the table and saying, what worries you? What's your concern? Let me come and see our facilities. Let me show you what we do and how we do it. Let me show you how we protect the water. And why are you concerned about the water? That's a huge concern for communities. So when you're able to say that to people, I think it strikes a chord, right? It signals that you are there to listen and to work together. And when you do that, I think everything changes with the dynamics between the communities and the businesses. I've done it before. I've seen it work. It's actually, for companies like ours, it's worth it to invest time and resources in doing that.
Yeah. I mean, that makes total sense. Just the transparency piece and like inviting, like, please come see, let me help you understand. Let me be a part of this. If people can feel like they're part of something, they're much more likely to buy in. So,
Absolutely. For me, what is a really key point here is when companies start assuming that they just have to educate people on their processes. To me, that every time I hear somebody say, we got to educate the community, I'm like, no, we're not going to educate anybody. We're going to sit down, we're going to have conversations, and we're going to understand what are their concerns. And once you understand that, then you're able to bring them in and say, let me show you how we do this. It's not about educating. It's about providing information so that they can absorb what you do, learn about it, and then make their own decisions, right? When you stop thinking that you're educating communities and that instead you are sharing information and understanding their concerns as well, you already open up kind of goodwill, right? And openness
absolutely.
on the side of the community to be able to find solutions. What you are able to do in one community may not be the same thing, right? They may have different concerns and you have to be flexible in the way you do that.
And
So
if you don't ask and if you don't listen, then the language you're speaking is not going to resonate at all.
exactly. And let me also just clarify that we've been very lucky at Milestone. We have very good relationship with our landowners. So we've never really had to do this, right? To do this robust stakeholder engagement process. But that is where I think it's really commendable that we have it in our sustainability report, because it'd be very easy for us to say, oh, we don't have any issues. We're not going to, we're not going to put this out there. But as we grow our business and as the company becomes this large environmental infrastructure firm, we know that we're going to get more questions.
Yeah.
And we are
Smart.
preemptively setting up these or putting out these commitments publicly so that the communities where we start growing our business know, and they know what to expect from us. So it's not that we've learned from horrible experiences. Quite the
Right.
contrary. We know how lucky we are that we've had great relationships with our landowners in the past, but we want to grow and we want to make sure communities know what, kind of quote unquote, what they're getting when Milestone comes in and wants to do business with them.
Yeah. That's great. Let's maybe wrap up with what can people look for, or maybe what are you looking forward to in the coming year as far as new initiatives and growth goes?
Well, we've done some really important work in terms of our sustainability reporting in the past. And it's not really just, I know that right now ESG and sustainability are on a rocky road, so to speak. But for me and for Milestone, it's about risk management, and it's mostly about creating value. We believe that sustainability has to be a driver of financial growth. Otherwise, it's done incorrectly, right? So we have kind of gone out of our way to develop a framework to prove how we create value in everything that we do. And we've partnered with third parties, with different types of organizations, all in the effort to increase the value we create, but then also identify and prove it, right? Prove it to our stakeholders. So all this work has made us grow a lot. And this year, we're kind of like, oh, okay, well, what do we do next? And to be honest, I've been doing sustainability reports for 25 years. And this time I was like, you know what? We're going to pause. We're going to wait and see where else we can create value. We're going to give ourselves the space and the time to truly identify new areas of value creation. And so this year, we're publishing our performance, our sustainability performance. So all the data will be out there in a couple of weeks, actually. But we're not going to publish a huge report. We're going to give ourselves time. We're going to think about it. And I'm actually really excited about that because I think we're going to be able to do new things and stop just writing stuff that isn't that important or people aren't reading, and to really, really try to focus on that value creation part of our business. And in a way, give credence to the statement of sustainability has to be a driver of financial growth. And I wish I could come up with stuff all the time that makes us grow financially, but it takes time, right? And so
Sure.
as we're growing our business so much on the carbon and industrial side of the business too, we want to make sure that we do it right. And so what I'm excited to your question, I'm excited about that space and that time to think about.
That's a pretty great thing to have, like being in the position to be able to take the space to really, take a beat, do your market research, figure out like, again, what other offers you could have and how you could add more value that can be profitable and sustainable for companies you work with.
I agree. We're lucky to have the team that we have, right? Where Gabriel Rio, our CEO, supports this. He's like a leader in this. He understands it. He gets it. And in my role that I'm able to kind of advocate for this and then be allowed to do it, right? So I think we're all lucky all the way around.
Yeah. Well, Carolina, thank you so much for this conversation, and thank you for the work you've been doing in the trenches for 25 years. And it's been wonderful to learn from you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your time this morning.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.
Carolina, thank you so much for sharing your expertise and for the work that you've led, transforming waste management into a driver of both environmental stewardship and business value. To our listeners, if you're passionate about practical sustainability in heavy industry or curious how transparent, community-centric strategies can unlock new growth, be sure to check out Milestone's latest sustainability performance data on their website. And if you enjoyed today's conversation, as always, please subscribe, rate, leave a review, tell a friend. It helps more change makers find the show. I'm Megan. See you next time on Green Disruptors.